Thank you, Ms. Maddox. Good evening and welcome to the April 28th, 2026 meeting of the Barry County Board of Education. It's great to have you all here. Enjoyed a nice presentation by our robotics team. Very impressive. Thank you for being here and showing us and teaching us what all you're doing in school. Proud of you. It's 6 p.m. and the meeting is now called to order. We'll begin with approval of our agenda. May I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda as presented?
So moved, Madam Chair. Mr. Callaway.
Motion by Mr. Callaway. Second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Kelly. All in favor? All right. Moving on to our superintendent report. Dr.
Yes,
LaDuff.
ma'am. Thank you. Board members, I've got 2 items of information tonight and 1 action item for the May 5th Board of Education meeting. I'll start with a system update. I want to acknowledge our school nutrition team. They received a perfect score on their health score at each and every kitchen that we operate. And that is not an easy task, and I believe that is actually the second time that that's happened this year. Is that right, Ms. Trunk? So we are perfect for the year in our kitchens, which is certainly probably something that doesn't happen around the state and the nation very often. So very proud of the work of those individuals, making sure our kids get fed well, but also make sure that they're safe and have a good, clean kitchen to operate as well. Also want to mention that several of our schools were recognized for math and literacy and cursive writing by the Georgia Department of Education. I think that was last week. The days are running together, so congratulations to all those. We'll be celebrating our retirees tomorrow at 4:30 here with a reception. And we're going to get to celebrate some graduates very, very soon. So May 20th, we'll celebrate Appalachia High School and Bassa, and on May 21st will be Winder Barrow High School's graduation ceremony. We look forward to celebrating all the accomplishments of all of our students. The second item of information is our board beliefs. They're up there on the screen for you to review. I just want to thank this board for just being committed to effective governance, really from day one, from us forming a team together. You see those belief statements, and as I prepared and reflected on our agenda this evening and the meeting tonight, this has really driven the work of our staff for the last year and a half. And, I know that you all spent a lot of time behind the scenes crafting these beliefs, and that has led to a lot of other work. You've revised and strengthened our BOE norms. So you see some photographs of several of the sessions you guys attended and worked together. You've codified these beliefs in policy, BAB, which also includes a system of teaching and learning and a framework of accountability and support that you all expect from me and our staff. And, we talk a lot about alignment and this has really, really guided us and helped us to align our work to the governance of the school board. And we're seeing not only some impacts in our classrooms, but we've also been able to do a lot of things to improve our school system, some of which most recently we've increased the SRO presence in our schools. We've implemented a weapons detection system. We've expanded mental health care. We've implemented a senior tax exemption. You all have commissioned a salary study, which we'll present some information on that tonight. And you also set some achievement goals, which we'll be reporting on very soon. Those are things that we have done, but as we look to the future, our presentations tonight, including our tentative budget, really will continue to reflect those beliefs. Our staff will provide reports related to the development of our strategic plan, which when completed will outline exactly how we are prioritizing our students and ensuring content mastery, academic growth, and data-driven success. We're going to hear about our instructional services being provided to our students. We're going to hear about facility improvements, and again, our FY27 tentative budget, which includes plans to respond to our salary study, directly correlating to our board's belief that we should receive, that our staff should receive competitive salaries and benefits. So with that, I just want, on behalf of all of our staff, I just want, again, to say thank you and express to you how refreshing it is to work in a place where governance is so closely aligned with what's going on in our classrooms and our outcomes for our kids. And then my action item for this evening is our norms that I just previously mentioned, and I would just recommend that you all affirm those norms, reaffirm those norms at our May 5th Board of Education meeting. And that concludes my report for tonight.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Leduc. We'll add that to our consent agenda. All right, moving on to presentations and discussions. We'll begin with Dr. Thompson, Deputy Superintendent Report.
Good evening. We have for the board this evening one item of information, and we have 4 action items that we would ask the board for consideration for action on the May 5th, 2026 board meeting. For our information item, we have the March communication report. If that is there for the board's review, it is March, so you're going to see a whole lot of green for St. Patrick's Day, as well as several of our splash announcements for new principals being hired, and a lot of other great things that are happening in our school system and that are engaging our stakeholders in our various communication platforms. So that is available for the board's review. So for our first action item, actually for our first 2 action items, both of which are related to policies, one of which is policy DFGA, which will be coming off the table for public review, and we would ask the board to consider adopting the revisions at the next board meeting, and then policy JCD, which we are asking the board to put on the table for review. I'm going to ask Dr. J.B. Bowen to come up and discuss both policies.
Good evening. The first action item is the revision to policy DFGA, the admission and gate receipts revision. And this involves changing our senior citizen admission policy to accept a picture ID instead of using or requiring of issuing or requiring a specific card for free admission to Barrow County Schools events. We have posted this proposed revision for the past month. We've received no official feedback, though I've heard some informal feedback that was all positive. And tonight, the superintendent recommends that we remove this policy from the public review period and recommends adoption of the revisions. Are there any questions?
All right, moving to consent.
Okay. The second action item is another policy revision that we want to place on the table for review tonight. This is policy JCD, or student conduct policy. In 2024, the legislature passed SB 351, which is known as the Protecting Georgia's Children on Social Media Act, which rewrote a portion of our bullying statute. Because of the staggered implementation dates over the past 2 years, we have now come to the time where we need to update our student conduct policy to reflect these new definitions. The recommended changes to our policy are based on the guidance and suggested language that we have recently received from GSBA. And we can take a look at the policy in question. We have highlighted here in red what we're adding, and we've did a strike through in red of what we're removing. But the highlights of that are if we look under the effect of bullying, it's been expanded beyond just a right to education to also substantially infringing upon the rights of the student. And they're referring to a broader interpretation there of the rights of the student beyond just the right to be educated, which is potentially they're expanding the scope of bullying in our schools, of how it can be applied based on the effect of bullying. If we move down, we can see that extracurricular activities have been added as a specific location for bullying to take place that we can address. It's always been implied that as part of a school event, that if bullying happens at extracurriculars, we would be responsible and address that, but now it's specifically outlined that way. And then you can see a large part of that paragraph has been stricken through, and much of that is a description of what we have been and still are until the revision, have been responsible for from a cyberbullying standpoint. There are many occasions in which we would, as principals, come into work on Monday morning and have parents waiting on us to share with us the events of the weekend that happened on networks and on devices and in locations that we had zero control over, yet we were, by policy and by law, forced to deal and address those things that we could not monitor effectively at all. So an encouraging thing, I think, with the new policy is they've narrowed the scope and the purview of cyberbullying to be focused in on cyberbullying that takes place on school grounds or at school events or using school equipment or school networks, which I think is encouraging us because those are all things that we have a much better chance of monitoring and overseeing, supervising, controlling much better than what happens away from school on non-school district devices. So we are encouraged by that. So the interpretation of that, these changes may broaden the bullying definition by expanding its effect on students to include infringing upon other rights. However, it significantly reduces the district's purview regarding cyberbullying by limiting it to acts occurring at school, school events, school-owned devices, or networks. The superintendent recommends placing this policy, JCD, student conduct and its revisions, on the table for public review and comment for consideration of potential revisions. Any questions related to these changes?
Consent?
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bowen. For our third action item, we need to consider the proposed student code of conduct that would be in effect for the 2026-2027 school year. So I'm going to ask Dr. Al Darby to come up and talk through how that was developed and what changes are present within it.
Good evening. Now the topic that all educators love, cell phones. So distraction-free education, House Bill 340, if you recall, is going to impact our K through 8. And so briefly we want to address the implementation of the Distraction-Free Act, House Bill 340, as I just said, for 26-27, as Dr. Thompson stated. This law requires school systems to limit student use of personal electronic devices during the instructional day to reduce distractions and increase engagement. In alignment with this legislation, we'll be making revisions to the Bexar County School Code of Conduct, as Dr. Bowen stated earlier, to ensure it reflects the requirements and expectations outlined in House Bill 340. Additionally, in compliance with House Bill 340, we have gathered feedback from stakeholders, school governance teams, and administrators to establish a consistent, progressive discipline process at all school levels. So again, K through 5, 6 through 8. And just so make a note, this current year, legislation passed for 9-12 to be implemented the following year. So we'll be discussing that as well. And those discussions have already started. Okay? So in Bexar County, students will be expected to keep devices such as cell phones, earbuds, and smartphones silenced and put away during instructional time, unless directed otherwise by their teacher or school administrator. We'll also take a thoughtful approach, focusing on a clear communication with families, staff training, and consistent expectations across all school levels as well. So this is more restricting of devices is more about maximizing instructional time and supporting the focus of learning environment. So, superintendent recommends placing the 26-27 student code of conduct on the table for public review and comment prior to board approval. Any questions that you have with distraction-free?
So I may have missed what you said. Does it cover smartwatches as well?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes. And so just so you know, in our code of conduct, we already have established electronic devices in there. So again, the law requires us to implement a progressive model in our corrective measures, as we like to call them. That's embedded there. We did highlight those for your review so you can see that. But again, each level is going to be a little bit different because of the type of corrective measures we can use.
And just to clarify, I know it's in here, but parents oftentimes are concerned with this, and we hear it in the community.
Yes.
So we're not saying that the kid can't have their device, they just can't have it out, correct?
That's correct. We're going to be requesting that they turn them off and put them away in their own individual bags, whichever ones they choose to do so. And so, again, back to that consistent piece that we want to do, working with Sierra Hammond and Miss Nicole Vallis right now, making sure that we're branding that across the district and working with our school administrators. So there's some consistency about how we're handling that at each of those levels as well. So to your point, maybe a frequent asked questions, we've talked about that. We'll have that set up, so a place on our website that parents can go and understand a little bit more about the distraction-free education.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right, consent?
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Darby. So for our final action item of the evening is the 2026-2031 proposed strategic plan. So this is an item that I've been updating the board on for quite a while, and we are now at the point where we are going to ask the board to potentially ratify the strategy map, and I'll walk through in detail what that means and why that's what we're asking the board to approve. But there's a lot of really important items on this agenda tonight, reflecting the budget, compensation, but I would argue this is one of, if not the most important ones you're going to vote on tonight, because this plan, which was built both by the board's feedback, but as importantly, the entire community's input, is what is going to drive school system action, prioritization, budgeting for years to come. And so it is extremely important that this is a piece that we get right. So I'm going to take a little bit of time to walk you through the development, some of which you've seen before, but I think it's still worth reflecting on how much work went in from the community to build this plan. So as you may be familiar with, we have this is just the model that any organization uses in order to improve work, essentially. It's the planning model. You can make it fancy or you can make it simple, but at the end of the day, you start with what do we want to be, what do we believe, what's our mission and vision, where are we now? You look at data, you look at performance, you look at stakeholder feedback, you figure out where we are at, you figure out where you want to go. What are we trying to improve? What are we trying to achieve as an organization? You figure out how you will know when you've arrived there. That's typically when you get into key performance indicators and other metrics where you're trying to determine, are you being effective in reaching where you want to go? And then how do you actually get there through targeted and strategic actions? And then if you are a high-functioning organization, that is an ongoing process that's happening constantly because you never rest on your laurels. Next slide, you're going to see some of the actions that have been taken during this process. We started this, as you'll see, in August, so this has been nearly a 9-month process of developing this particular plan, and we are now at the point where we're going to ask the board to make some considerations. I do want to point out on the next slide, strategic plans, you can slice this a lot of different ways, but strategic plans typically have 4 areas, at least in school systems. You're going to have your strategic goal areas. That's your big, broad areas of what a school system does, and that's where you're going to hang your objectives, your measures, your action steps onto those, because school systems do a whole lot of different things. And so if you want to have a plan that's going to drive action, it has to be specific as to the different areas that a school system operates under. So in each of those big buckets of what a school system does, you're going to have performance objectives. That's what's based on what your stakeholders, your students, your teachers, your community members are saying where we need to see improvements in. That's where you're going to identify what are those big areas in there that we need to make measured progress in. We have to be able to measure that progress. That's how we're going to develop performance measures or KPIs that are going to show us how we're moving the needle on those areas. And then tied to each of those are going to be initiatives and action steps, the actual things and the work people in the school system and the community are going to do to try to make those improvements. So this process, if you recall, started in August of 2025 when GSBA met with the Board of Education to do an initial needs assessment to talk through the entire process. And I do want to take a moment to highlight GSBA, Steve and Lenita, who have been working with us. They have not only done a fantastic job, and they bring a wealth of information for districts who've gone through strategic planning processes, but given the circumstances, they really worked with us a lot on fiscal cost. And we really, really appreciate what they did in terms of going out of their way to help Barrow County out due to what we had endured as a community. But that process started this. Y'all will remember that well. Y'all did your own needs assessment. You modeled out what the board wanted to see. And I can tell you board feedback was taken heavily into consideration in this plan in terms of the initiatives that were put in place. On October 27th, Bethlehem Church hosted us, and we held our community feedback event. 240 people from across the community showed up on a very cold and rainy night, and they together sat with leaders of the community who served as our representatives, so they were talking to community faces that they were familiar with, not just school system employees. And those folks went through a strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats analysis, which generated 137 individual posters that we then had to go through and consolidate down to overarching themes that cut across all of those areas. And as you can imagine, that was a pretty considerable amount of work. You know, not everybody can come out in a single night, so we also followed that up with a survey, which over 690 people took, which also enabled folks that were not there that night to give their feedback, and that had to be folded in and consolidated with the feedback that came through our feedback event. The page you're seeing now is the work that we did to within each of those areas to try to identify the overarching themes that came out consistently across the Board of Education, the community in our feedback event, but also the community on the survey. And we've shown you this before, but you can see the areas that came out, and those are the foundation for the plan. When you build out those objectives, when you build out those initiatives, those are deriving directly from the feedback of the community, because as Dr. LaDuff is fond of saying, this is the community school system. It's not his school system. It's not mine. It is the entire community school system. So for us to take it where it needs to go, we have to know what the community's views are. The first step in translating that into a plan was our planning team. This was made up of about 40 individuals, which included school system leaders and district leaders and teachers and staff, but also included students, parents, community leaders. We had 4 wonderful students that were really the heart and soul of this, and I think everybody was blown away with their input, 3 high school students and a middle school student. But this group took time to look at a bunch of data, to look at those community feedback, overarching themes, and they started to build out the strategy map, which is what you guys are going to be voting on next week. You can see on the next slide some of the work they did. It was a full day facilitated by GSBA, where we took that community feedback and translated it into the skeletal bones of a plan. Shortly after that, on January 30th, an action team, which is made up of school staff, but a very broad group of school staff. We didn't just go principals and assistant principals. This included custodial staff. This included school food and nutrition staff. This included directors. This included teachers. This included front office staff. We wanted to have the voices of all of our folks embedded in that plan. They met for a full day where they started to take the work the planning team did and translate that into what specific initiatives need to happen to move the needle in the areas that were identified as needing improvement, and what were the measures we needed to look at to evaluate that as we moved forward. Both those teams looked at a whole lot of data that we prepared for them longitudinally and historically, and you can see a list of those as well. All of that was poured over by those teams, because you don't just want to look at your community feedback. You also want to look at things the state of Georgia is asking of school systems, but also data that we can see our performance relative to our neighbors, our competitors. We wanted to make sure that we had empirical grounding in everything that we looked at as well. This is the really important page, to the point to where we've also broke this out in your board packet individually. This is the strategic plan strategy map, and this is what we're going to ask the board to vote on. This is the part of the plan that really does not change over the course of your 5 years. That's not to say there could not be tweaks, but typically if it happens, it's because there's some sort of an external shock or a change or something that happens. This is likely going to stay the same throughout the 5 years. So what you're looking at, the blue bars on the left, are your strategic goal areas. Those are those big 5 areas of school system functioning, including student growth and success, quality workforce, organizational effectiveness, community connection and commitment, and then positive culture and safety. For each of those, there are 3 performance objectives. Those are the things that, based on community feedback, we need to put action to try to make sure that we are maximizing performance, improving performance. So the way you read a strategy map like this is, if we want to improve in student growth and success, we have to improve student mastery of standards in all content areas, but we also have to increase literacy proficiency for all students, and we have to increase the college and career and life readiness for for all students. And you hang the initiatives and the measures on each of those green performance objectives. That's where the action lives, because if we improve each of those areas, we ultimately achieve the vision of the community in terms of student growth and success. And you can see, I'm not going to read through each of them, but you can see the work that was done to identify key areas. I want to highlight one thing in particular. You will notice board focus at the bottom. When I talked to Lanita at GSBA yesterday, she believes this will be the very first time a Board of Education has voted to include itself in a strategy map for strategic plan, which they view as a really key, crucial step in making sure that board governance is embedded in what a system does. Because as Dr. LaDuff discussed, it is the work the board has done with its beliefs, with policy BAB, that enables all of this work to happen. And so if you'll recall, in February at our retreat, we asked you guys to wordsmith some language. This is what we came up with based on what your input was. The governance team, made up of the superintendent and board members, will promote student achievement and organizational effectiveness through ethical leadership, monitoring of data-driven results, fiscal responsibility, and building working relationships with the entire community. And schematically, it is not a mistake that that is at the bottom, because that work being done by the Board of Education is the foundation on which the rest of the plan ultimately lives. So we think it is really important that the board be reflected in this plan, because the board is such a crucial part of making this successful. And so that was something GSBA had wanted to see plans start to move into, and so we will be, we think, the very first one who has included that, and we are appreciative of the board's work in making this possible, but also in putting themselves in there as well, so that all of us have skin in the game ultimately. But this document here will likely not change throughout the strategic plan term, and this is what we are going to ask the board to vote on next week. Now, there are other parts that are more or less built out but not entirely built out, and so we're not going to show those tonight. Our intent is to have, from a timeline perspective, the entire plan finished around the end of June, if early July at the latest, and all of that will be very public, transparent on our website. You may ask, why is that part not done? Well, a lot of those things are based on data that has not yet been finished. So when we're trying to hang particular strategic initiatives around a learning target, we have to wait until we have the data in from this school year to know, is that an effective one? So we have a list of strategic initiatives, but we're still waiting to make sure those are going to fit when the data comes in. So what I've shown here is an example of some of them in some areas. So for example, under student growth and success, one of them is design and implement cohesive assessment and curriculum resources that strengthen K-12 alignment. Under quality workforce, provide professional learning and coaching support for leaders around improved school climate. Organizational effectiveness, conduct an annual district-wide facility utilization and classroom capacity audit to optimize space usage and inform future planning decisions. Community connection and commitment, develop and implement a district workforce coalition composed of key local and regional employers, higher education partners, and district leaders. Positive safety and culture, expand classroom management and student behavior, staff training, modeling, and support. So for each of those green performance objectives, there would be at least 3 of these initiatives. I'm just giving you a flavor of what they will look like, but what you ratify next week, each of those will have initiatives tied to that. That's just a flavor of what some of those look like ultimately. If you go to the next slide, Megan. So in each of those areas, and this will be something that will be in Assembly so that everyone will be able to see within our e-board platform, each of those strategic initiatives will have action steps tied to it with time frames, people responsible. We want to make the entire thing very transparent in terms of the work that's being done and how we're making progress on that. All of that will be developed out and released over the summer. We just need to get all the data in so we can finalize those pieces. But this is the work that's currently ongoing now. We did want to dovetail at the end. You write a plan based on feedback. You have to close the circle. So we went back to those high overarching needs of prioritization from the community. We wanted to make sure each of those was reflected in the plan, and they are. They are sometimes addressed in different ways. So, for example, bell schedules, one of the things we want to do is to take a hard look at our bell schedules. Are they effective? How do they tie into other things like our transportation schedules? There's a lot of work to be done in some of those areas to determine what's effective and what's not, whereas other areas may be as simple as how are we going to improve in this area? We have processes in place, but are they as effective as they need to be? How do we refine them? How do we improve them? So we wanted to dovetail back to make sure that the things the community earmarked as this is really where we want to see improvement, that all those things were reflected in the plan, and we were pleased that they were. The work that will happen after the final plan is released is, we've milked the BOLD acronym as many ways as you can imagine, and one of the things we had for years and years was building our learning differently. We wanted to be very innovative, and we still are, and that's something that will not change, but we want to expand that to building our learning deliberately. When you do work of this sort, particularly things that are as important as people's children and their education and their future, you have to be constantly evaluating the work that you're doing, almost ruthlessly so. You have to be willing to sit down and ask yourself hard questions, look at the data, look at the evidence. So there will be a lot of work that comes after this. When the board approves it, we'll work with Ms. Vallis and her team. We already have some really nice things to share with the community to kind of explain the process of how the plan was built, what it means for them. Dr. Brown and her team will work to align school improvement plans to the overall district strategic plan. I will work with departments up here to try to make sure that their work is also aligned to the plan. We will develop a public platform of KPIs that the public can look at that will update in real time, that will show how we are at effectively meeting our performance measures that we identify. And some of those may only update once a year. Some of those may update rather frequently. But we want it to be dynamic and always something that the community can look at and get a pulse of where we are functioning relative to our plan. We'll develop a schedule of checkpoints for plan implementation and review. A plan that sits on a shelf is not a plan at all. You have to be constantly refining it, and then build a schedule of key data review and analysis points. So those are all the things we will do to make sure that this plan is integrated into our daily operations, and it will also be integrated into our board meetings. When we come up to give information items, action items, they will all be tagged under where they fit in the strategic plan. I did want to give you an example of just some of the KPIs that we have in here. So there will be a whole scorecard of various measures: student growth and success, increased student proficiency on the end of grade assessment and end of course assessment in math by X%. You notice it's X because we can't set a goal without knowing what our baseline is, but it will be something of that ilk. Achieve and maintain a teacher retention rate of 89% or higher as reported by the Georgia Insights dashboard under quality workforce. Maintain a Moody's AA2 bond rating or higher, which, if you're not familiar with that, involves a whole host of factors, including our fiscal health, our internal processes, the community's health, economic development, all of that. And we are one of a very, very select, small group of districts in Georgia that has that high bond rating, which is really something that we covet. Community connection and commitment: increase the percentage of families responding positively. How welcome does your school staff make you feel in the school building on the Georgia Climate Survey? And then positive culture and safety: reduce the number of students who are chronically absent. All of those will have goals that are tied to what our performance ends up being at the end of this school year. It will have goals for each year. We will revisit those as we go forward, because some of them we may make faster progress. We need to adjust it in that way, or we may not make enough progress and we need to revisit our action steps and our initiatives to ensure that we're meeting those. You see next an example of what that might look like, and I will tell you right now, my commitment is what we end up putting out will look a lot better than this, but this is what a crude version of what a balanced scorecard sometimes looks for a school district. This would have been if this was in effect in SY24, and you can see there was a goal of increasing students scoring proficient or distinguished or higher on different areas of the end of grade and end of course tests by 3% annually. Green means the goal was met. Red means the goal was not met. Blue met. Progress was made, significant progress, but didn't quite hit the target. There's a host of ways we want to do it, and we want to really make something very interactive that would allow people to drill down a little more than just here's the goal. That'll take a little more time to build out, but we want to make sure this is something that the community can really look at and feels like nothing is being hidden from them in terms of performance. And I'll end it where we started, which is this is an ongoing process. Once this is voted on, once we start the work just kind of starts at that point. As having shepherded 9 months or 8 months of this work through, I'd like to think it gets easier at that point. It actually doesn't. It gets much harder because now you have to make it a living document that drives our action and something that we don't get sick of, but at the same time, it drives everything that we do. So that is our strategic plan, and we are again asking the board to vote at the March 5th work session on the strategy map that will be the core of this plan for the next 5 years. I am happy to answer any questions the board has.
What is our attrition rate right now for the system?
It's around 87, in terms of like the retention rate's around 87% right now. And what you find is that most districts, it's very hard because the attrition rate takes into consideration things like retirement. And so people retire, people leave for a lot of reasons that are positive. They may they may move to take care of a family member, their spouse may get a job. So it's unrealistic to get attrition typically higher than a certain level. When we look at our neighbors, we look at the statewide data, if we are consistently at 89% or higher, we're retaining a lot of staff, which is going to be positive. We're about 87% right now, give or take.
So we're not at that 89%?
No, ma'am, we're not.
I have a quick question. So we're being asked to approve the strategy map.
Yes, ma'am.
But when will we actually have like quantifiable data? Is that coming from the balance? I just tried
The
to.
goal will be to have that to you by midsummer. I mean, aggressively, I have it on my particular calendar as being done by late June, but I kind of like to under-promise and over-deliver. But so I'll say it could take as late as June because we don't get some of that data back immediately. As a matter of fact, some of the end-of-grade data, because of the state changing standards, we will not have until October or November. So what you will see is going to be some TBDs or some when it's released, and we'll update those in real time. Those are typically when GSBA works these kind of plan. The reason we ask the board to do the strategy map and not the others is this is the part of the plan that doesn't change, whereas everything else is constantly in flux. Now, your measures don't typically change a ton, but they can because the state may change their accountability metric, the tests may change, there may be something we find that we need to measure that is more important that we want to substitute out because we've learned that's a much better metric. So typically what the board is voting on is the overall skeleton of the plan, which is the strategy map. But the goal is to have the entire thing public midsummer.
So can we use the data from last year? I know we're waiting on data now, but we've also, I know we've changed, we put a lot of work in to focusing on some of those test scores. So just to see, I know that this plan is new from 26 to 31. However, I think if we could see last year's number as a generic baseline and then see what these numbers are when we get those numbers, because I know we'll be waiting until October, but it would just be nice to have that standard baseline. And then my second question is, when we get the balanced scorecard, that pretty sheet that you showed at the end, will we make sure that that's accessible at each school's website? That way parents can go to their school website and click directly to theirs. That way they're not trying to go through the entire county.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And is my piggyback on the attrition rate, not just for the district, is there a way that we can get it for each school, what the attrition
Yes,
rate
ma'am.
is? As well as I know we've had a lot of moving around with administrators and a lot of attrition in our principals, our administrators and APs. How is that attrition affecting those test scores in those schools? Is there a way for us to see that also, have that logged out, and see how that's going to affect those schools?
That's, we don't, it's a little challenging to do it that way. We don't, I mean, we have some leader attrition, but ultimately not enough to make that a meaningful comparison in many cases, but certainly we have some documents that we can look at.
Not necessarily the leader, but if we have a
Sure.
huge attrition at one school, and we have a lot of new people coming in, I would think that would have to.
Yes, ma'am. We can
affect
explore options on that, yes.
Yeah, is there a way to get that to the board?
We can, we'll discuss that and we can revisit that.
Okay.
Okay, so just for clarification, we're going to approve this,
Yes, ma'am.
and then there's going to be a plan with quantifiable data points by midsummer, maybe a little later when you get the 25, 26 data.
Yes, ma'am.
And that will be in addition to the balanced scorecard, or that will be reported to us in the balanced scorecard?
It is the full plan. The full plan, if you go back, Megan, if you'll go back very much earlier on, scroll back to, I think it's like slide number 2, if you go back there, like the performance measure, keep going forward, please. Okay. Those performance measures are part of the plan. That strategic scorecard, the balanced scorecard, is a part of the plan. It is something, though, that is not something that is typically asked of the board to approve. The board does review them. They're presented publicly. We'll talk about them at board meetings. And we plan to be very, very transparent with all of this. But because those are things, particularly when you get into the strategic initiatives, those will change on an annual basis and sometimes on a monthly basis. It's just such a moving target in terms of you're constantly churning the work to try to improve. That's not something that is really subject to constant approval. So what the board typically approves in a strategic model is that strategy map. But everything else is very transparent. And at the end of the day, the goal is to move the needle on all of those measures. And if we're not doing that, the plan is going to have to be revised constantly until we get the results we need.
So we approve the map, but you set the metrics of how much you want to improve in each area.
Yes, ma'am.
related to the map.
And we will report those metrics
Absolutely.
on the balanced scorecard. Those metrics will be on the scorecard.
Dr. Thompson, excuse me if I may. Having many years' experience in performance improvement and quality initiatives, I think you've done a phenomenal job, and so I appreciate that, along with Dr. LaDuff and the team, because it does take a lot of components, a lot of steps to get there. I look forward to seeing the KPIs that we've discussed over a year ago, and I really believe that you have a solid map, and we're going to bring this to fruition. And I do want to note that our last strategic plan, there's going to be so many more components to this one that we knew were lacking in the
Absolutely.
prior one, for obvious reasons. So we've got a lot of focus on those data initiatives. And you'll be doing your PDSA, Plan, Do, Study, Act, on those initiatives, as you've mentioned. So I really appreciate all the hard work that's going into this, and I can't wait to see the final products.
Thank you, Dr. Carey.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Thompson.
Appreciate you.
All right, moving on to our Chief of Staff report, Dr. Kurtz.
All right. This evening, we have 2 information items and 3 action items to be considered as a part of the consent agenda on the May 5th regular board meeting. The first information item is a review or an update of our classification and compensation study. Any day I get to work in Barrow County School Systems is a good day. You know, we all signed up for this to make a difference in the lives of kids, and my particular piece of that puzzle is trying to make sure we have the smartest, the best educators and support staff in front of our kids and supporting them each and every day. That can't happen without the work of an informed, engaged, and supportive board, and I'm excited that we have that. As Dr. LaDuff began this meeting, he reviewed the board's commitment to their core values through the board beliefs and policy BAB. And from that work is a significant commitment to staff. In fact, 89% of our general fund budget, as we'll hear shortly, goes towards staff salaries and benefits, because we know that that's what makes a difference in outcomes for our kids. In order to reach the competitive compensation levels that our board's outlined as a part of their core beliefs, the board funded a salary study almost a year ago now, and Ed Planners was tasked with classifying and comparing all positions in the district against the market. Through this classification process, Ed Planners reviewed our current classifications and reclassified most non-teaching positions based on objective job-based criteria. The bulk of our non-teaching positions will move to what we call a unified salary schedule and be disconnected from teacher pay scales. This will streamline our pay scales and make it easier for folks to understand what they will be paid and are being paid here, as it separates them from the teacher pay scale or multiple pay scales and puts them on a single unified schedule. Beyond reclassifying positions and streamlining pay scales, we asked the group to develop a highly competitive pay scale for every job class or every job family.
Highly competitive can be properly described as salary sufficient to remove pay as a barrier to employment with BCSS or as a reason to leave Barrow County school system. The good news is that the company found that the board's previous work has already resulted in a number of our positions receiving highly competitive salaries. Those positions that are already compensated at that highly competitive level will maintain their current compensation. In other words, no one will lose pay as a result of this salary study. They did, however, find that a number of positions were not compensated at a level that was considered highly competitive. The bulk of those are our teaching positions. The teaching positions, if you want to go to the next slide here, were significantly behind. If you look at our heat maps, you'll see our T4 there. At the top, we're in the orange and yellow, which means we're behind our neighbors. They've developed highly competitive schedules. On the right, those proposed schedules put us in the green in a position where we are not at a competitive disadvantage with our neighbors and those that might be wanting our best. So the largest group of folks besides our teachers would be our school-based certified staff. In fact, 91% of the funds used that will be necessary to fund the salary study implementation will go to school-based certified staff. I'm thankful for our board for supporting the work, and you can scroll through these if you want, for supporting the work needed to move our kids forward by ensuring that we have highly effective educators and support staff wanting to come to Barrow, and those that are here wanting to remain Barrow bold. Do we have any questions or comments?
I know this was a daunting task, so thank you. I know it was something that we've been looking forward to seeing the results on, and I can't wait to see all the unified schedules as well once we get those done.
Thank you. We're excited about the work and appreciate the support of the board in doing this work.
I appreciate seeing it in writing. We've heard, but we haven't seen a table so that we can compare it. So I appreciate that.
Thank you much. If there are no questions, I'll ask Mr. Ayers to come up, and he is going to review where we are with our, provide some information around our bus surplusing process.
Good evening, everybody. Everybody doing good? Get you some interesting stuff going on here. No data, just practicality, you know. So anyway, just give you an idea where we're at with what we're doing this for our replacement cycle for our buses. In an effort to take a more deliberate and structured approach to standardizing our fleet replacement cycle, the Transportation Department has established criteria to improve overall efficiency, reliability, and cost effectiveness. Our goal is to maintain a consistent life cycle that minimizes unexpected breakdowns, reduces maintenance costs, and ensures dependable service for students and schools. To support this effort, we're utilizing specific criteria to guide both surplus and replacement decisions. Buses identified for surplus are typically those that have exceeded their useful service life. Ages range between 12 and 16 years. Demonstrate declining reliability or require repairs that are no longer financially practical when compared to their operational value. Additional considerations include increased downtime parts, availability challenges, and overall condition. Replacement decisions are prioritized based on age, mileage, maintenance history, and performance trends with a focus on moving the least feasible units first and maintaining a balanced, sustainable fleet cycle. This structured approach allows us to gradually align the fleet with industry standards, maintain an appropriate spare ratio, and ensure that resources are invested in equipment that provides the greatest operational benefit. So, any questions about any of that? Kind of boring though, ain't it? Anyway. Fleet stuff. Anyhow, next thing's the action item piece. Summary on this, the buses will be sold through public surplus using 2 consecutive 10-day listings if needed, with proceeds returning to the general fund. This action reduces maintenance burden, lowers risk exposure, and supports a more efficient, right-sized fleet. The proposed surplus of these buses reduces the fleet from 218 to 191, bringing our spare ratio closer to the industry standard of approximately 20%. This adjustment reflects a more efficient alignment between our active routes and available backup units, eliminating excess capacity that is no longer operationally or financially practical. As a result, the fleet becomes more streamlined, cost-effective, and better positioned to support daily service with an appropriate level of redundancy. And basically 20%, we're at 19. This puts us right on the nose of that. We've stayed above that considerably for several years, but we've trended toward getting more buses in. We've done real good with the district supporting us, consistently buying new buses, 10, 15, and one year I think we had 20. So it's really helped us get away from the older models, but we only held on to them because sometimes some of our spares needed spares, if that makes sense. So we've gotten to a better place with all of that. And so we just decided, hey, here's a good opportunity. The growth is kind of, flatlined for a little bit. And so we're just kind of going to go ahead and just get us some extra parking lot space on all of that. So just moving in the right direction there. Rationale, these units are approximately 20 plus years old, fall outside our targeted replacement cycle, and are experiencing increased parts and labor costs along with higher downtime that impacts route consistency. Several are approaching thresholds where major component failures become more likely and no longer cost effective to repair. In addition, recent new bus purchases allow us to reduce the overall fleet size by removing excess aging units while still maintaining adequate spare capacity. Maintaining these buses no longer aligns with our standards for safety, efficiency, and operational reliability. Financial impact, pretty much undetermined. The one thing it will do, we'll remove those off the insurance roster. There'll be some savings there than whatever we can get from selling them, things like that. So there will be some. Be hard to know what that is until we put them up for auction, things like that. So, but we'll set the minimum bid up there a little bit. It's pretty competitive when the buses are still in running condition, so they're a little more competitive based on that. So other than that, let's see. Superintendent recommends a surplus of 27 buses based on fleet replacement criteria, including age, mileage, maintenance, cost trends, and reliability. So good. I'm sorry, that was a lot of redundancy. Usually don't stuck. That's sticky for me. So anyway, if y'all got any questions, just let me know. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Are there any of those buses that have the air systems in them that we could take out and put in new buses?
For air conditioning?
Yeah.
No, the labor, it wouldn't be practical. Labor cost for that would be so intense. It's not practical.
Okay.
It wouldn't be practical. Just be, in the systems adapted over to those different model buses. Those units are bus specific.
Okay.
So the line, it wouldn't be practical. Good question. Appreciate that.
Thank you. And now I'll ask Mr. Perno to come up to review 2 action items related to our facilities.
Good evening. So our second action item here tonight deals with stadium digital boards at Appalachia High School and Winder Barrow High School. We're asking the superintendent to recommend purchasing digital boards for the stadiums at Appalachia High School and Winder Barrow High School direct from the manufacturer, which is for Metco, at a cost of $583,258.78. We received competitive proposals for the boards through our construction manager, Paris Construction, and that's been included in the already approved guaranteed maximum price for our system athletics improvement project. And we believe there was an opportunity to purchase those boards in that way without the sales tax being applied, but the more we studied on that, we realized that that couldn't happen. And so we don't want to lose that advantage there, being able to save over $45,000. So that's why we're making this recommendation to pull that piece out. And what we would do is deduct a change order of the contract with Paris to pull that out, and then just purchase them directly from Metco. Any questions on that?
Thank you for identifying that cost savings for this. And I did have another question. Is there any opportunity for sponsorship or advertisements or anything with the boards that's going to maybe help support the athletic program?
Absolutely. That's one of the primary features of these boards. There are a lot of opportunities for that. And so it'll provide a different experience for the kids and spectators when these are in place.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. I just want to segue off of that briefly to give an update on the System Athletic Improvement Project. And this is, if you'll remember, replacing our tracks at Appalachia and Winder Barrow, stadium digital boards, field lights at our middle schools and Appalachia practice field, and fence replacement at the tracks, and baseball and softball fields at Appalachia and Winder Barrow. So the project is underway, and I won't try to take, system operations can't take full credit for the rain that we received yesterday, or today, and what we expect tomorrow. But usually what happens when you put a shovel in the ground is you get some rain. So maybe a little bit of credit anyway. We got Mother Nature shook loose there. But the project is underway. The Parish Construction has begun demolition out at Appalachia High School. When they complete that work there, they'll transition to Winder Barrow. We expect light pole bases to be delivered to the middle schools and Appalachia Practice Field tomorrow. And I also want to point out that the schools have been extremely helpful in clearing the way for this work to begin, even before school is out. Particularly our athletic directors, our principals, our coaches. They've made a lot of concessions and moved a lot of pieces around to help this get going. So we really appreciate their help. And we're working together to help keep the Appalachia spring football game in place, practice for Appalachia's graduation, and of course, Winder Barrow's graduation as well. So it's a team effort there, and our folks have just been great. For Bassa Athletics, quick update on that. Planning and design is approximately 65% complete. We're on schedule to receive final pricing and begin construction this fall, and our expected completion date is fall of 2028. So any questions on that brief update there?
Now, I see, Mr. Perno, that the two boards, digital boards for Winder Barrow and Appalachia are set to be completed summer and fall?
They'll be completed this summer prior to
Okay.
the first
So they'll be
football game.
completed before football? Okay,
Yes,
thank you,
sir. Yes, sir. And we'll give regular updates at the upcoming work session. We'll have a little bit more by way of information and photos and that sort of thing, but we're just getting kicked off, so that's just a brief run through on that. Our final action item tonight is an easement request from Barrow County for Matthews School Road sidewalk project. And let me start, before I get into this, by stating that the letter and the drawings that we attached to this item last week, they were updated just today. And really, the one substantive piece to that is the estimated value for the donated easement. For lack of a better term, the county got those numbers crossed, and so the value in that previous letter stated was $4,062, and it should be $5,413.60, so a difference of a little over $1,300. But the superintendent recommends approval of temporary and permanent easements along Matthews School Road to allow for the construction of a sidewalk by Barrow County. System operations staff met with the engineer for Barrow County to discuss these improvements. And so dedication of both temporary and permanent easements has been requested to allow the improvements to be made. And the county performed an appraisal on the property, and as a best practice or a standard, if you will, industry standard, they applied a 75% value to that full fair market value for the permanent easement piece, and 20% to the fair market value for the temporary easement piece. And that's how they arrive at that 5,413 number. So schedule completion, they expect to complete this, if approved, over the summer. And in addition to the sidewalk, new safety features will be installed. This would include new pedestrian signage and crosswalks at the drive entrances to Westside and Kennedy, stop bars and stop signs to accommodate pedestrian crossings, lighting for the monument sign at Kennedy. So those are some of the pieces that go along with it. An easement dedication document would have to be drafted for us to review along with legal counsel. But that's a description of that project. And, again, the hopes there with the sidewalk down through that area connecting two subdivisions on either end, would be improved safety for our kids getting to school. Any questions on that piece?
So this was requested by the county for this easement, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, I think that's what collaboration looks like. I'm in support for sure.
All right. Consent agenda for the easement request and also for the bus surplus. Everyone good with that? And then I'd like to keep item 2 on the agenda for next month as a separate line item. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Ms. Houston with our Chief Financial Officer report.
Guys are
She's
doing
gonna bring
great.
us more
This is
data.
going to be the biggest crowd I've ever had because you're forced to stay here. All right, here we go. All right, so tonight we are ready to present the tentative fiscal year 2027 budget for the board approval. Staff began working on the budget in October. We waited for the governor to release his budget proposal for the legislature and adjusted our budgets to reflect those recommendations along with any new laws that were passed this year. We distributed allotments to the schools and hosted a career fair to fill vacant positions. The Board of Education has been actively involved throughout the process. We met in February to discuss the board priorities, which included the board beliefs. The cabinet members shared their priorities as well to ensure alignment. We met again over the past 2 weeks for a more in-depth review, and tonight we are ready to present. Once the tentative budget is approved, we will begin work on the other funds budget, which includes the capital project funds, the which is the 1 penny sales tax fund, debt service, and special revenue funds. These special revenue funds include school nutrition, federal funds, and certain state designated funding. We will advertise the budget and hold public hearings in June to gather community feedback. If all goes well, we will incorporate any necessary changes and present the final fiscal year 2027 budget to the board on June 23rd for final approval. Here's a brief overview of how school systems are funded. Unlike businesses, we don't sell a product or have the ability to raise prices or increase sales. Instead, we rely on 2 primary sources of funding, both tied to taxes, state and local. State funding mainly comes from income taxes and is allocated based on the number and type of students we serve. For fiscal year 2026, the state provided 58.3% of our total funding. The second major source is local funding, which is driven primarily by property taxes. We also receive revenue from motor vehicle taxes, real estate transfer taxes, interest earnings, and property rentals. Local sources make up 36% of our fiscal year 2026 funding, with the remaining 5.7% covered by our fund balance or our reserves. This is our presentation of the tentative fiscal year 2027 budget. We are projecting $224,870,091 in revenue and $235,877,782 in expenditures. This results in an $11 million deficit, which will be covered using the unassigned fund balance. At the end of the year, our unassigned fund balance is projected to be $54.7 million, or approximately 23% of our fiscal year 2027 expenditures. That's about 2 3/4 months of operating cost. This balance helps us prepare classrooms at the start of the school year and sustain operations from July through September before property tax revenues are received. For fiscal year 2027 tentative budget, we estimate that 56.4% of our funding will come from the state and 38.9% will come from local sources, with the remaining 4.7% covered by reserves. Taking a closer look at our fund balance at June 2025, our fund balance was $89,779,000. However, a portion of this has been assigned or set aside for upcoming needs within the school system. We have designated $12 million for future capital projects, $2.5 million for literacy needs since our current curriculum will expire in 2 or 3 years, and $1.5 million for security needs as our Centegic system will expire in 2 years and will need to be replaced. We also account for $8 million projected loss for the fiscal year 2026, which is the current year. Thanks to the diligent efforts of our staff and department directors to manage cost efficiently and staffing adjustments, we now expect that loss to decrease by $4.9 million from the original projected loss of $12.9 million. Additionally, we must account for the $11 million deficit in the 2027 tentative budget. After these considerations, our remaining fund balance is projected to be $54.8 million. And as mentioned earlier, it is best practice to maintain 2 to 3 months of reserves. This allows us to cover the one-time expenses and manage the first few months of the fiscal year when expenditures are high, but property taxes and revenues have not yet been received. Let's take a closer look at the funding, starting with state funding and how it's changed year over year. These funds come through the Quality Basic Education formula and include the Equalization Grant. The Equalization Grant is designated to provide additional state funding to school districts with lower property wealth, helping to reduce disparities in education funding. In other words, districts with higher property values are able to generate more local property revenue than we can, so this grant helps us offset that difference. Over time, we have seen the state cover a smaller share of our overall expenditures. In 2014, state funding accounted for 66% of our budget, compared to a projected 56% today. While the needs of our student systems continue to grow, the state funding formula has not kept pace with those increasing costs. If we look at property taxes, we see the opposite trend. Over time, we have had to rely more heavily on local funding to meet the needs of the school system. In 2014, property taxes accounted for 25% of our budget. Today, we are estimating that share to be 33%. It is also important to note that our millage rate is currently at a 13-year low of 15.193 following the board's decision to roll back the millage rate last year. Now we shift to expenses, starting with health insurance cost. We are required to participate in the state health benefit plan for our certified employee health insurance. The annual cost per employee is $23,220 a year. In total, our annual health insurance cost is approximately $35.5 million. Of this amount, we are expected to receive about $25 million from state through the QBE formula, leaving a $10.6 million to be funded through local revenue. This represents about 4.5% of our budget. It is also important to note the significant increases over time. Just 5 years ago, in 2023, the per employee premium was $11,340. Since then, it's more than doubled. The Teacher Retirement System of Georgia, TRS, is the state-mandated pension plan for our employees. Under this requirement, we contribute 22.32% of each employee's salary, and the employees contribute an additional 6% of their own salary towards TRS. For fiscal year 2027, this will total approximately $25.9 million, or about 11% of our budget. It is also important to note how this mandate has grown over time. While salaries have increased, the contribution rate has also risen significantly, resulting in a much larger financial impact to the system over the years. We want to share a few examples of what employee compensation looks like in a school system. For a first-year teacher, the state-based salary is $43,592. We provide a local supplement to remain somewhat competitive with surrounding districts and attract teachers to Barrow County, bringing that gross salary to $49,592 for 2026. To this, we add required benefits and employer cost, 22.32% for TRS, or our retirement, 7.65% for FICA, and health insurance costing $23,220 per employee. We also provide a small life insurance policy at $20 per year and cover workers' compensation for all employees. Altogether, these benefits total $38,380, bringing the total cost of a first-year teacher to $87,972. In other words, we pay about 77% of that employee's salary in benefits and associated cost. For a teacher with 22 years of experience, the salary is $86,150, while the total cost of the system is $135,691. When we look at other roles, a bus driver costs the system about 81% more than their salary and benefits, and a maintenance worker costs about 75% more. Focusing specifically on health insurance, the employer share alone ranges from an equivalent of, go back one slide. Yeah. Focusing specifically on health insurance, the employer's share alone ranges from the equivalent of about 27% of a higher paid teacher's salary to as much as 69% of a bus driver's salary. For context, other state agencies outside the public education are only required to contribute 20.454% of an employee's salary towards health insurance, which is a little difficult to understand. Other legislative actions that passed through both chambers this year include several measures with significant financial impacts. As mentioned earlier, increases in health insurance will cost the school system an additional $900,000, while TRS, the pension, will increase, will add another $475,000. Expanding personal leave from 3 to 5 days has the potential to increase substitute costs by approximately $351,000. Paid parental leave was also expanded from 6 weeks to 9 weeks. If we experience a similar number of pregnancies as last year, this could result in additional $127,000 in substitute expenses. These are great measures to our employees, but they do come with a cost to our taxpayers. The legislators also mandated a literacy coach in every elementary school. With 10 elementary schools in our district, these positions are funded at $54,000 each. However, as shown in the previous slide, our more experienced staff typically earn significantly more than that amount, so the long-term cost to the district remains uncertain. Additionally, we are now allowed to hire retirees at 100% capacity compared to the previous 49% limit. However, this comes with an added cost, an additional 6% on top of the employer's share of 22.32% pension contribution. Finally, Senate Bill 33 was passed to cap property values. We do not yet know the impact of this bill, but it's similar to House Bill 581, which would have a large impact on our property taxes on homesteaded property. A good part of this bill, though, is that it did acknowledge the need for a stronger financial reserves by increasing the recommended reserve level to 3 months of operating expense, or 25%, which provides some added financial stability. Overall, these represent unfunded or partially funded mandates that place additional financial strain on the school system's budget beyond our direct control. 2 major cost reduction incentives are currently being implemented, beginning with a reduction in staffing. Because enrollment has not grown as anticipated, we reviewed student-to-staff ratios and were able to eliminate 52 positions through natural attrition. In addition, 15.5 positions were reduced within the central office and operational departments. Together, these changes resulted in approximately $5.6 million in savings. We are also in the process of outsourcing paraprofessional positions for new hires and self-initiated transfers. When a paraprofessional elects to take health insurance, this approach can generate approximately $17,500 in savings per position. Based on this, the potential savings for next year could exceed $350,000. Below is a summary of salary increases over the recent years. In 2026, there were no adjustments to the salary schedules that were carried forward into future years. Instead, employees received a board-initiated one-time bonus of $1,000, along with a state partially funded bonus of $2,000. In total, employees received $3,000 in 2026. However, this was a one-time payment and does not represent a reoccurring increase to base pay. Looking back over the past 7 years, certified staff have received a total of $12,000 in salary increases, of which $10,000 was state-initiated, along with a $9,500 in bonus, of which $6,000 was funded by the state. Over the same period, 7 years, classified staff have received a 12% increase in base salaries and $9,500 in bonuses, of which $6,000 was state-initiated and was partially funded by the state. All right, let's get back to the actual budget, looking at specific increases and decreases. There's only 3 more slides. This is it. We're right there. Okay. All right, our 2026 beginning budget was $226,296,000. We deducted $2.1 million for adjustments in health care and salary differences from that number. However, health insurance increase of $600 per employee by the state increased our budget by $901,000. TRS increases, the 21.91% to 22.32% is going to increase our budget by $474,000. Employee step increases, employees going to the next step, that's a $2.1 million increase to our budget. We removed 67.9 positions, so that was a decrease of $5.6 million. Last year, the board initiated a $1,000 bonus. We're not going to have that in our budget, so we're going to decrease our budget by $2.6 million there. Departments did a great job budgeting, but we went back to them and said, you can do better. Let's cut another 10%, and they did, so that was a $2.6 million decrease. No, $2,232,000 decrease. We did add 19 employees for the special ed IDEA funds. These were not added positions. We just moved them over from special ed funds into the general fund. So we had to increase our budget by $1.3 million for those employees. Last year, we had some amphitheater equipment in our budget, and we no longer need that, so that was a $100,000 deduction. We have two mandated laws that we have to follow, the Monique Burr Foundation, the human trafficking law, and the required character strong. The increase in those subscriptions, this wasn't the total amount, this was just the increase, was a $13,000 increase. We increased our substitute costs because we have some of those state mandates that are going to affect it, so we increased our substitutes by $395,000. Insurance costs is just the cost of doing business. Liability insurance, it's going to increase $124,000. The security grant, so we get a security grant every year, and we know we're going to get it, so we went ahead and put the revenues in of $801,000, and we also put in the expenditures of $801,000. We don't yet know what that's going to be spent on. The committee has to come together and meet and decide what they want to spend that money on, but it is earmarked in the general fund. SROs are costing an additional $802,000 this year. That's not the total cost. The total cost budget is $1.9 million for 25 SROs. The Flock camera yearly subscription is a new cost to us, and so that's a $33,000 cost for that subscription. And then finally, the salary study implementation that Dr. Kurtz just went over. That is going to cost the system $15,024,000, which gets us to our bottom line budget of $235,877,782. So just to summarize our increases and decreases, our fiscal year 2026 budget was $226 million. We made reductions of $12.4 million. That's 5.5% of that budget, and so I am really proud of our staff for doing that. Increases, which were mandated by legislators, by Barrow County, by just doing business, $6.7 million increase, and then the salary study results, $15 million. And that's how we came to our bottom line budget of $235,877,000. So our next steps, we are going to ask the board to approve this tentative general fund budget, and then we are going to present our other funds budget on May 26th. We're going to present the tentative millage rate on May 26th. We're going to hold public hearings and millage rate public hearings on June 2nd, June 15th, June 18th, and June 25th. We'll come back on June 23rd to see if the board is going to approve our 2027 budget. And on July 7th, we'll come back and see and approve the millage rate. That is it. Any questions?
I have a few, ma'am. So first, I just want to say thanks again to the staff and the executive team that works so diligently to have a savings to our budget of $12 million. I know we get that $7 million that's kind of passed down from legislation and from added cost. But that work is what I think is setting us up to be able to fulfill this salary study increase. So very grateful for that. Second question, just kind of because it's recent in the community, is I know that we say that we are paying $1.9 million towards the SRO fund. It's been circulating in the community that the county's paying all of it, the SRO fund. Can you explain, I see that that's in their expenditure reports. Can you
Absolutely.
explain how that works from us to them to pay the sheriff's office?
Yes,
Thank you.
yes. So they are paying the salaries of our SROs. They are their employees, so they are dictated by the sheriff, and they go to wherever the sheriff tells them to go. They do come to our schools, and they watch over our students and are prepared to help whenever needed. But they pay the employees, and they pay their taxes, and they pay them the paycheck, and then we reimburse Barrow County $1.9 million. So we get an invoice every month from them, and they send us the cost, the list of all of the deputies and the cost of each one, and then we send them a check just so they forward fund them, and then we reimburse them for that cost.
Thank you for that clarification, ma'am.
Yes.
Anything else? All right. Board members, we have all participated in budget training and heard detailed presentations from Ms. Houston, our CFO. And we've had ample time to review the information and ask questions. We've carefully considered the results of the salary study and remain committed to offering competitive salaries for our dedicated and hardworking teachers. Additionally, we have asked staff to reduce expenditures across the board, and they have delivered, reducing our budget by $5.6 million. Given this thorough process and the work already completed, I see no benefit in delaying approval of the 2027 tentative budget until next week's meeting. This is a critically important effort by both our board and our staff, and it is ready for action. Ms. Bradford is not here tonight due to illness, but she stands with us. With that being said, would someone like to make a motion to approve the 2027 tentative budget tonight?
I would like to make a motion to approve the tentative budget.
Motion by Ms. Lord. Do we have a second?
Second, Madam Chair.
Second by Mr. Callaway. Any discussion? All in favor? All right, motion carries. Thank you. All right. Moving on to our Chief Academic Officer report with Dr. Brown.
Good evening. The Chief Academic Office report contains 3 items of information. Our first item, I'm excited to share that last week, BCSS, as Dr. LaDuff already shared, was visited by the state school superintendent, in which 9 schools received awards in several areas based on the performance on the 24-25 Georgia Milestones Assessment and cursive writing accomplishments. And if you want to keep going, Megan, you can see a picture of our 9 principals and their banners along with Dr. LaDuff and our state school superintendent. So the first award I'm going to talk about, if you want to go ahead and switch, is our math leader schools, which include Bethlehem Elementary School, Heyman Morris Middle School, Russell Middle School, and Winder Elementary School. These schools were recognized for exceptional performance in mathematics based on Georgia Milestones assessments for the school year 24-25, and they either demonstrated high levels of achievement, growth, or both, with the recognitions tied to key grade levels and end-of-course measures. So specifically, that was high levels of growth or achievement in either 5th grade or 8th grade or in high school algebra. And that is at both of our middle schools do have 8th grade students taking that algebra course. Our literacy leader schools, Holstenbeck Elementary and Heyman Morris Middle School, were honored for their reading achievement and growth during the 24-25 school year. So the Literacy Award focuses on the gateway grades of 3rd and 6th grade, and recognition similar to math is based on both either the proficiency or the growth. Finally, the John Hancock Award was awarded to Austin Road Elementary, Bramlett Elementary, Holsenbeck, Statham, and Yargo. And this recognizes schools for strong cursive writing instruction, which is a part of Georgia's new ELA language arts English language arts standards. And schools can earn this honor by showing that at least 90% of students can write their name in cursive, with added distinction for schools where students could also write the preamble to the U.S. Constitution, and Austin Road received that ribbon of distinction. So, and that's all I have for that item. We're very excited and very proud of all of our schools for their hard work. And we have begun the milestones assessment for this school year, so we are expecting to achieve great things and win even more banners next year. All right, our second item provides an update on instructional services designed to meet individual student needs, including English for Speakers of Other Languages, ESOL, gifted education, the Early Intervention Program, EIP, and special education. And so at this time, I would like to invite our team of directors up, and each of these programs are going to share just a little bit of information about their programs. So we have Amy Wright, our Director of Federal Programs, Shelley Fallows, our Director of Secondary Education, Dr. Sleethia James, our Director of Elementary Education, and Amy Wadley, our Director of Special Education. So the services that we're going to share about today operate within and alongside the multi-tiered system of supports, MTSS. So far I think I've said at least 3, maybe 4 acronyms, but we're going to try to make sure that we make it clear. So the MTSS process is a student-centered collaborative framework that uses multiple sources of data, progress monitoring, and really emphasize that shared planning among teams to ensure that students receive the appropriate level of support. So the MTSS system is designed to help every student thrive by aligning not just the academic piece, but also the behavioral and well-being supports to really look comprehensively at meeting our students' need, looking at the whole child. Megan, you can switch. So through a structured, flexible problem-solving process, and note the key word of flexible, the teams will work collaboratively to review data, to determine student needs, and to ensure that we provide a continuum of supports across different tiers. Students may qualify for additional services, which you guys will hear about tonight, based on their needs, and they can be served at any tier. So now I'm going to turn it over to Amy Wright, and she's going to share a little bit about ESOL.
Good evening. So just as a reminder, when students register with us, each family completes a home language survey, which then we use to determine if students need to be screened for possible language supports. And this is done at the school level, and all ESOL teachers are completing an annual training and certification. Once a student is screened, teachers and leaders review this data to determine the best support and services for the student, thus their schedule is created. We're able to support our EL students through multiple models. ESOL teachers can push into the classrooms with the homeroom teacher, content teachers. They also could pull students out for targeted small groups, scheduled classes like a connections class at the secondary level, as well as a sheltered model where only EL students are in the smaller classes with an ESOL certified content teacher. Teachers will use the WIDA ELDs, which is the English Language Development Standards, which Georgia Department of Ed has expertly connected to our Georgia standards for our teachers' convenience and use. And so students work on this language acquisition through supportive content learning. So each spring, all of our ESOL students are assessed through the WIDA Access Assessment, and this assessment measures English language skills in 4 language domains: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Leaders and teachers will review this data to determine which students have reached proficiency levels in order to exit the ESOL program. We are aligned with our state criteria of clear exit with a 5.0 comprehensive performance level, but we also have a reclassification level at 4.3, with them also being scoring a level of 3.5 or higher in the reading and writing domains. So this second slide is a quick look at our ESOL population overall and by grade clusters. The pie chart shows the breakdown for our dually served students that are also ESOL as well as SWD. We currently serve about 2,300 students, about 1,850 are active ELs, and about 450 are monitored. So once students leave the program, we do monitor them for the subsequent 2 years just to ensure that they are continuing to grow and be successful in the classroom. You can also see that at each of our schools, the ESOL population, overall the enrollment has slowed, but we are still continuing to enroll students into our schools every day. Next slide. So we currently have 27 languages spoken in Barrow County schools, with Spanish being the majority. This school year, we had about 635 students scoring in that CPL below 3.0, which indicates that they are an emerging English language learner. And so they receive the maximum amount of support at our schools. We also have a group of long-term ELs, which just means that they've been in the program for more than 5 years. Most students that are in this category do have other contributing factors that may impact how quickly they are learning the language. It could be that they have dual services with special education. It could be the transiency or interrupted education that's impacting that. Slide 4. So we actually had scores come in yesterday, and so we've been diligently crunching numbers to have some preliminary data for you today. We tested 1,851 students in the month of February and March, and I'm happy to say that for our elementary, we were able to exit 219 students. In our middle school, we have about 50 students. And then our high schools, we are looking at about 30 students, so about 300 students to possibly exit for this spring, our program. That's about 16%, which is up from our 12% the year past. So teachers will be sharing these results with families and making the adjustments for next school year with supports and services based on this data. I do want to share a quick celebration. We actually had a student at Wonderbarrow High School get selected for the exemplary EL student that's going to be recognized this Thursday with the state superintendent. He actually represents our Northeast Georgia RESA district. And so Angel Barrios is actually going to attend Soka University of America that's in California. And he's going to be on a full academic and athletic scholarship for track and cross country. So I just wanted to share that exciting news that we received. Thank you. Do you guys have any questions? Thank you.
So when it comes to your programs, federal programs, most of that program is funded through the federal government, correct? I would assume.
Yes. So Title I-C and Title III-A are, we do have funding for our migrant, our EL population through those programs. Yes.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to share tonight a little bit about our SCOPE program, which is our gifted program here in Barrow. I want to provide first a brief overview of our SCOPE program and then highlight our identification process. And then most importantly, I'd like to show you a few of the wonderful experiences some of our elementary students have received. So in this first slide, you'll see that Barrow County refers to our gifted program as the SCOPE program, which of course, you know, we love acronyms. And that stands for synthesize, collaborate, originate, produce, and evaluate. These words are more though than just an acronym. They reflect the kind of thinking that we want our students to engage in every day. The purpose of the program is to provide students with experiences that really help to nurture their talents, giving them opportunities for deeper thinking, faster pacing, creative problem solving, and collaboration with their intellectual peers. We're also committed to meeting state expectations while ensuring that students receive meaningful, rigorous, and engaging instruction every day. You can go ahead and go to slide 2. So you'll see on this slide an overview of our gifted numbers currently in Barrow County. So you'll see we have a total of 1,564 students currently in Barrow who are identified as gifted. And you'll see that breakdown for elementary, middle, and high school. On the left, you'll see it says 453 students have been evaluated this year. What that means is from the two seasons that we do evaluations, which is in the fall, around October, and then again in the spring, late January and through February, and sometimes it carries into March a bit, we evaluate students for giftedness based on data that an eligibility team has talked about. So you'll see we have evaluated quite a few kiddos this year, and I'm excited to report that of those 453, to date, about half of them have qualified for gifted services. And that number will go up probably just a bit because our gifted facilitators are currently in the end stages of final eligibility team meetings and parent communication. So you'll see on this slide an overview of the referral and eligibility process. So we follow state guidance when it comes to what that looks like. You'll see that it begins with referrals, which can be based on automatic referrals if students score in the 90th percentile or higher on the reading or the math map. Then they automatically, their names, their data is brought to an eligibility team made up of administrators and teachers who look at that data, and also they may gather other screening data and teacher recommendations and try to decide, do we have enough data that we feel like it is best to move forward with an evaluation, or to wait, collect some more data, or is no further evaluation needed? If we decide we want to evaluate, then, and it's always a team decision, they get parent consent, and then students are evaluated in 4 key areas: mental ability, achievement, motivation, and creativity. And they need to qualify in 3 of the 4 categories, or if that mental ability score is very high, they can actually qualify in just mental ability and achievement. So this multi-criteria model is important because giftedness shows up in different ways, and so this allows us to really recognize that talent broadly and equitably. These are the current gifted delivery models that we have in Barrow active right now. You'll see that collaborative is listed as an indirect service in elementary and high school. Those two, that is going to sunset at the end of the year. And then we just found out from the state today that our innovative gifted K-5 co-teaching model was approved. So that's one that we'll be adding for our models for next year. So this flexibility really allows us to be able to provide gifted services for our students that are both compliant and responsive, whether it's through those advanced content classes, cluster grouping, collaborative models, or specialized instructional segments. Our goal is not simply placement, but impact for our students. And then in this final slide, you'll see with Austin Road, I've got 3 schools I want to show you just real quick some pictures and some of the exciting work that they've been engaged in. You'll see in this first one, I thought it was really neat that kids engaged in this project around geometry through studying the work of Vasily Kandinsky. I had to look up how to pronounce his first name, where they applied math concepts through artistic design. And actually, I've seen that in a few of our schools. If you walk around, you get to see really cool artwork where they've done that. These are examples of just students learning in memorable and creative and authentic ways. On the next slide, you'll see Bramlett Elementary School, and some of the pictures you'll see there are kids designing cities, studying gravity through engineering tasks, and completing novel studies through the Phantom Toll Booth. This is the kind of work that develops perseverance, reasoning, and real-world application. And then last, on Kennedy Elementary's slide, you'll see that the students engaged in aquaponics and hydroponics system building for plant growth and ecosystem study, and others even built a Cherokee Village replicas and studied Georgia history through that project. So in closing, as you can see, our gifted program is far more than labels or placement. It's about creating opportunities for students to think deeply, solve problems creatively, and engage with challenging content and grow alongside their peers. We're proud of the work that's happening across Barrow in this area and grateful for your continued support of programs that help all of our learners thrive. Thank you. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have them. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Another program that is used to support students in Barrow County is the Early Intervention Program, also known as EIP. EIP is a state-funded program through the Georgia Department of Education designed to support our kindergarten through 5th grade students who need additional help in reading and/or math. EIP is an extension of our core instruction that provides targeted strategic support. Through the EIP program, we focus on students who are at risk of not meeting grade level expectations so we can intervene early and prevent long-term gaps. Our work through EIP is grounded in the MTSS framework, as Dr. Brown mentioned earlier, which ensures that support is layered, that support is intentional, and that our support provided is responsive to our students' needs. EIP is also aligned to the Georgia Early Literacy Act, reinforcing both our state and district's strong focus on early literacy and foundational skills. At its core, EIP provides targeted short-term support, and the goal is to accelerate learning and return students to full instruction and success within the Tier 1 instruction. Our primary goal and shared priority at both the state level and here in Barrow is to strengthen Tier 1 instruction first, as we recognize that it's the most powerful lever. Schools use multiple data points to identify students who need support, ensuring decisions are accurate and timely. Instruction and interventions are evidence-based, so we're using strategies that are proven to impact student learning. The schools are monitoring student progress frequently, which allows us to adjust our instruction quickly and effectively. Our schools also follow the established clear decision rules, including entrance and exit criteria for students, so that our students are able to receive the right support at the right time. And most importantly, our schools are doing an amazing job with ensuring that students are moving fluently across the tiers of support. This is not a static placement, it's a responsive system designed around student growth. Ultimately, EIP is ensuring that every student gets what they need when they need it without losing access to strong grade level instruction. When identifying students, schools take a comprehensive data-driven approach to identifying those students that need additional support. Schools use multiple data points to ensure accuracy, which includes local assessments, non-referenced assessments, and/or our EIP rubrics to ensure that we are providing consistent criteria-based decision-making. This multi-layered approach helps us ensure the right students are receiving the right level of support. Once students are identified, we provide support through flexible service delivery models that are aligned to our state guidelines. In Barrow County, we utilize the augmented model where the EIP teacher and the classroom teacher work together through co-teaching to provide targeted in-the-moment support. We also utilize the self-contained model, which allows for a smaller instructional setting while still maintaining that alignment to grade level standards. We use the pull-out model. It's used when students may need some intensive small group intervention outside of the core classroom to address some specific skill gaps. And finally, our schools use the innovative model, which also allows them to design supports that are responsive to their unique student needs, while also using evidence-based practices. Across all of these models, there is a strong emphasis on collaboration between our teachers, the support staff, as well as the use of data to guide instruction and make instructional decisions. We are excited that we are seeing positive impacts across the district, particularly in both literacy and mathematics growth. Students receiving EIP support are demonstrating increased growth over time, especially when our interventions are implemented early and consistently. We're also seeing stronger mastery of foundational skills, which is critical for long-term academic success. As a result, we've been able to reduce the number of students requiring long-term intervention, which is a key indicator that our supports are working. Last year, in kindergarten, we were serving about 373 students. This year, we were serving about 349 students. In grades 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, we were serving as many as 1,168 students across our elementary schools, and we're currently serving about 881 students. And then in 4th and 5th grade, we were serving as many as 664 students, and we're currently serving 587 students. So we're excited about the decrease in those numbers. Some specific strengths that we have in Barrow County is our alignment with ensuring that there's consistency with instruction for our students. As I mentioned earlier, our schools have strong progress monitoring system in place, so they're reviewing data frequently. This also allows them to track student growth to determine how our students are growing and achieving, and then adjust that instruction in real time. There's a high level of collaboration with teachers and support staff, which allows them to continuously refine their practices, again, based on that student data. As a district, we're also maintaining a strong focus on early intervention, particularly in grades kindergarten through 2nd grade, which is consistent to our state, where we can have the greatest long-term impact on student success. So similar to all of the programs that we've discussed, as well as the program that will come after me, our goal is to ensure that every student in Barrow County school system receives the support that they need to succeed, as well as through the strong instruction, targeted intervention, best practices, and a system that responds to their growth. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I'm here to wrap it up, everybody. All right, so special education. This slide is all about who we serve and how we support in our department. So you'll see the chart on the left, and this just describes the varying disability areas that we serve here in Barrow County. And then right next to that, you see the student count. So that tells you, as of the October 2025 FTE count, how many students fell into those different categories. On the right-hand side, you'll see a list of a variety of things that I'll go through real quick. So core direct services that we provide to our students. In blue, this is going to designate our services that happen within the general education environment. And so these students are served amongst their typical peers. And so that's supportive services. Generally, that's with para support, but it could also be an interpreter or a job coach. And then we have consultative, collaborative, and co-teach, which are direct services from our special education teachers. And then underneath that, in green, these are our specialized settings. And we've got small group for resource. We have small group services for self-contained specialized programs. And then hospital homebound services are something else that we offer our students who require that level of support. Then I've got a rundown of our specialized programs that we have here in Barrow County, and these are for students who require a more structured and restricted setting in order to learn in. We've got our PrEP program, which is our special needs preschool, and then we have BASE, which I talked about at length at the last board meeting. And then our PACE program, this is for our students who are learning on an adapted curriculum. So PACE stands for Program for Adapted and Community Education. Then we have our RISE program, and this is a behavior support setting for students who need a little bit more in order to support their social emotional learning and academics. And then Lighthouse, which is in effect our GNETS program, and that is a program that's also supporting students with their behavior, but it has a therapeutic component that is ingrained into their daily services. And then the regional DHH program, or Deaf Hard of Hearing program, that is not self-contained, but it is highly specialized. And these students who require that type of service, they are going to Clark County and Madison County. We pay into that, and that's where they are receiving those highly specialized supports.
And then we've got a host of related service options that we provide to our students to help them access the curriculum and make progress on their IEP goals. Okay. Some key highlights and priorities for our department this year that I'll review with you real quickly. So planning for our pre-K PALs has been underway this year, and this is just another service option that we'll be able to provide to our young learners. And then we've got co-teaching and specially designed instruction. That's been a very large focus of our department this year, building that capacity within our schools. And then least restrictive environment, that we put a lot of work into that, and we are going to continue to work on what that means and how we think about our students and where they are educated. And then events and initiatives, we had our transition fair in March. That was a huge hit. Barrow Bigs is something new to us this year. It's a club that offers leadership and service opportunities to our general education students so that they are paired with a special needs student and they're able to get to know them and partner with them throughout the school year. And then Special Olympics, of course, which was amazing. We had that just a little bit ago. And then the Yes I Can Awards, which is this Friday, everybody. So very excited about that. Just want to highlight Special Olympics because it was so amazing. And what I want you to know is that we had 364 athletes that participated. There were 377 Barrow Bigs, so the club I just mentioned, 377 Barrow Bigs athletes were, or not athletes, but supporters were there to be there with their athletes. And then 152 teachers helped to lead and support that day. And then also we had so many volunteers and community partners that helped to pull that off. So this slide just captures, I think, beautifully the essence of that day. Just look at the smiles and the happiness on everybody's faces. And also it shows the athlete's oath, which is let me win, but if I cannot win, let me be brave in the attempt. The last two slides, these show our Barrow Bigs. And these are the students who were there supporting all of our athletes at Special Olympics. So this new club has just been amazing. And through this program, Barrow Bigs, the students are really and truly discovering the joy of partnering with different peers of all ability levels. And my hope is that it also provides us a pipeline to special education teachers in the future here in Barrow County. And the last slide just shows our older Bigs who were there. That wraps it up for special education. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Okay, so hopefully that highlights just a little bit about our instructional services that really come together for that comprehensive support for our students. Any questions? Okay, so without further ado, we have one last item of information which our students have been so patiently waiting for. And I am excited to introduce Mr. Lee Bain, who is our Director of State Reporting and Robotics Coach. Tiffany Coles, who's with the Barrow County 4-H Youth she is the 4-H Youth Development Agent. And of course, our students, our incredible students, to come on up and leave it. Bain's gonna
come on.
lead us through.
Good. We're good. It's been a while. Sorry.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. Thank you, Dr. LaDuff. Thank you, board members, for this opportunity. On the agenda tonight, if I'm not mistaken, I do believe that being held to the last place on an agenda is a place of honor, so take that as a compliment. So thank you for that as well. Tiffany and I work together really closely in shared leadership of this remarkable program. Present tonight, in addition to those in the audience, we have students from our 3 high school robotics teams. One unique aspect of our robotics teams is that they are Barrow teams. That means there are students from each different high school working together on individual teams. It's not a school-based team, it's a Barrow team, if you want to go in a Barrow strong kind of mentality there. We're quite proud of that. As our high school students put this presentation together, Tiffany and I actually had them spend time reading and reflecting on your recently adopted board beliefs as posted on the board website. And what they noticed was that many of those beliefs show up naturally in the way our robotics program is run and how they grow through this program. So tonight, student representatives from our 3 high school teams will share, in their own words, the work and the impact of our Barrow Robotics program.
Hello, board meeting. Hello, board members. Hello, Dr. LaDuff. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm Michael Pollan.
I'm Dalton Keene. We're representatives of Team 21721. Today, we'd like to talk to you about our robotics program. Robotics is difficult, and competitive robotics is even more difficult. Nothing really works on the first try, has a lot of attempts, and I apologize. Nothing really works on the first try, and servos and motors, they fail constantly. But one thing that is always the same is our deadlines. In robotics, we have deadlines that are real, and not meeting these deadlines is bad. An example of that would be at Meet 2. We came off of Meet 1, which was a great success. It was a big win for us. We went undefeated, and we're first in our league. And we wanted to keep it that way. So we set off for a complete redesign of our robot. So in about 2 weeks, we had the big plan of going in with a brand new robot. That did not work. For Meet 2, we were not able to finish in time, and we didn't pass inspection, so we were not able to compete. However, ever since that, when we were able to go in with a robot that was finished, we went undefeated for the rest of the season.
Next slide, please. None of these challenges come without reason, though, because with every hardship we go, we gain something. Because not only do we grow as a program, we grow as individuals. These issues we have, which board members, I'm sure you yourself have grown these skills throughout your career. We learn how to not only be leaders, but also how to follow a leader, how to be good teammates. Because these are all things that are going to help us not only in college, but in our professions. Because it can be very hard. I mean, we are peers. We think we know everything when we don't, and it's a struggle. But I mean, this program genuinely helps us build those skills. Next slide, please. On the topic of skills, technical skills, we learn so much stuff. We learn professional level manufacturing. We learn professional level software development. We learn how to run businesses by building a portfolio all season. I mean, all these things are incredible and things that I'm sure y'all have used in your life. And high schoolers are learning how to use these things.
As Michael said, these are all things we learn in addition to the classroom, which help prepare us for life after high school and help us make a difference in our communities and help everyone around us.
Good evening. My name is Parley.
I'm Josie.
We're representatives of Team 18597 on the Barrow Robotics program. And as was previously mentioned, we take great pride in the impact that we have on others, especially the youth and those younger than us in elementary and middle school. For example, we had this summer camp this past summer where we had several kids come in, but one in particular, we'll just call him Michael for privacy's sake. He came in, and I'm sure all the parents and teachers in this room can relate to this, but he came in and he had so much energy, but all of it was diverted, and he couldn't focus on anything, and he didn't want to complete any sort of task until he came to my lessons in particular, where I was teaching computer-aided design, or CAD for short. And it was the most beautiful thing to see him come in every single day after he found something he was passionate about. He came in ready and prepared to make something he could be proud of. And him, along with all the other kids that we've taught during that summer camp, and hopefully summer camps in the future, are probably going to stick with me for the rest of my life, just the impact that we have on those kids. Outside of that, however, we have a huge impact on the community, and we like to involve ourselves in that as well.
Yeah, so in addition, we want to talk about, not just pouring into our youth, but also pouring into our community, as well as recognizing those who have poured into us. So, for example, we have the Georgia Metal Fab, where we worked with Mr. Bart Harkey, who's actually here with us. Mr. Bart, oh yeah! Mr. Bart's great. We were able to, excuse me, work with him where we designed plates for our specific robot, and he custom cut them just for us. And so that was really, really great that we were able to work with an actual industry professional business here in our local county. In addition, we also poured into a couple other programs and projects in our own community. For example, the TCC Verizon Back to School Bash, as well as the UGA Extension Office Master Gardeners. So the Back to School Bash was actually us providing our members to help with the willpower and managing out. If you could see the picture right here up there to your right, there's a lot of people in that picture, and so we had a couple of our members there to help manage the crowd as well as distribute some of these back-to-school items, as well as the Master Gardeners. So we were actually able to use our own design and build and engineering skills that we actually use in season, and we stepped up for our community, and we actually built and designed a greenhouse at the 4-H office that is actually used widely throughout the community. So doing these kinds of things are really our way of stepping up for our community, knowing that we are a collective that is willing to help our community. So, yeah.
Yeah, as I previously mentioned, we take great pride in the impact that we have on the community and the impact the community has on us, but we also take pride in the accomplishments that we make during the robotics season, which we'll show you in a second.
Hello, my name is Celeste Still,
My name is Emmanuel.
and we are representatives of Team 27444. It is my pleasure to share with you how our robotics program not only meets the high standards of robotics, but exceeds them. We compete in a league made up of 17 teams, yet our program takes up 3 of the 6 Judges' Choice Awards that are given out at the league tournament. For example, 18597 got the Think Award, and I'll read to you the definitions of each of these awards from the first website. The Think Award is given to a team that recognizes a strong engineering process, documentation, iteration, testing, technical solutions. The Design Award, which was awarded to our team 21721, celebrates the top team that demonstrates an understanding of industrial design principles by striking a balance between form, function, aesthetics, while meeting the needs of the season's challenge. And Team 27444 was awarded the Control Award, which celebrates the best team that uses sensors and software to increase their robot's functionality during gameplay. Not only that, but all 3 of our teams made it as 3 of the 4 final finishing Alliance teams that win the robot game playoffs as a program. And 2 of our 3 teams in our program qualified for state, which is actually the first time that our program has had multiple teams qualify for state, which is a huge accomplishment, which is why I would like to invite you to share in our success as partners of this program. Our success is your success due to your support.
Me and my teammates would like to say thank you to Dr. LaDuff and the board members for giving us the opportunity to utilize the facility like the makerspace and the equipment that you granted us with. Your support has made a significant difference for us. Thank you for making this possible, and thank you for your time. Please accept these tokens of appreciation from us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Represent. That concludes our presentation for the Barrow Robotics Program. If you have any questions, I, Tiffany, or any of our team members will be happy to answer those.
I have a quick question. How many of you think that you'll continue your education or your future career will be related to something in robotics?
The FIRST Robotics program prides itself in that it is the only varsity sport where every single student can go pro.
Great job, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bain. Thank you, students.
Amazing students. And this concludes the Chief Academic Office report.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. At this time, we will need to go into an executive session. Could I have a motion to discuss or deliberate upon the appointment, employment, compensation, hiring, disciplinary action or dismissal, or periodic evaluation or rating of a public officer or employee, or to interview applicants for the position of superintendent? Motion by Ms. Hendricks. Second by Ms. Kelly. All in favor? All right.
Giving students the opportunity to dive deeper into what they wanted to do. And I really wanted to go into chorus and theater, and so the idea of having longer classes that went below surface level was really cool to me, and I really wanted to take that opportunity. Some of my most memorable experiences at BASA have been all the theater productions. Those have been really fun, but especially all of my English classes because I love language arts and I love reading. And my very first class here with Mr. Clark was multicultural lit, and we read Lord of the Flies, and that was really fun because we'd have debates about all the characters, and it's just one of my most memorable classes, and I'll always remember it. So there are 3 teachers at BASA that have had a lasting impression on me. First one is Miss Mitchell, my chorus teacher. Coming here, I was really nervous about my chorus abilities, and she's always been there to support me and help me find my potential, and I'm really grateful for that. The second teacher is Miss Barnes, my theater teacher. She's just really fun all around, and it was also, like, I had stage fright and it was really bad, but I wanted to perform, and she helped me find the potential in myself and the confidence, and also helped me to discover that I wanted to be a theater teacher myself. And then the last third teacher is Miss Carrie Weiss, my American Sign Language teacher. And she's just a very loving individual, and she really cares for every single student that comes into her room. And I love her. She's like a second mom to me. You can really see the passion when she teaches about the deaf community, and that's really inspiring to me. So my future plans after BASA, I'm going to be going to Columbus State University to study theater education. And then after I finish my freshman year there, I plan to go on a church mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, which is a service mission for about 18 months where you teach others about the gospel and become closer with God yourself, as well as teaching others about Him, and I'm really excited to do that. One of the biggest accomplishments that I have done at BASA that I'm really proud of is getting the lead in Mamma Mia. Growing up, I never would have imagined that I could go on stage and sing in front of people. It just wasn't something I did. I couldn't speak up in class. It was terrifying. But Donna, the character, was one that I really wanted, and despite being really scared, I went for it and I got it. And it was such a life-changing experience because I really got to find the confidence in myself and see others have that in me, and to be able to bring my dreams of performing to a reality. And it was just fun because I got to become close to so many other people and really get to share that love I had with the community. So I'm very proud that I was able to do that. One piece of advice that I would give myself as a freshman is to just be yourself. I was really scared because I used to be homeschooled my whole life, so coming into public school as a sophomore, I was really scared of what would others think of me or being accepted, and so it took a while for me to really be myself. And so it was hard to find friends for a while because, you know, they didn't know who I truly was. So when I started to just be myself and not be sorry for it, that's when I found my true friends and the people who have been there for me. And so I would just tell myself that it's okay to be you, and you're gonna find your true friends and true self and experiences by being true to yourself. And so I would tell that to all the other freshmen or sophomores, juniors, like, just be yourself and you will find the right people that way.
Hi, I'm Barbie Culp, and I am the mentor coordinator for Barrow County Schools.
I'm Rita Brookshire. I've taught in Barrow County Schools for 26.5 years, and I have recently retired, but I am trying to mentor again. Well, right now I am mentoring at County Line, and I have a little girl that's in 4th grade, and she's just a quiet, shy little thing. We mostly talk. I have asked her about academics and what her favorite subjects are and her hobbies. And she tells me about these things, but she always leads me back to, she just wants to talk. She doesn't necessarily want to do anything. Last year, I did have a child at Holstenbeck Elementary, and he was a kindergartner, and we would do different things together. We would go play something. You know, he liked magnets, so we would go play for about 30 minutes and talk. Sometimes I would read a story to him. The counselor asked me last year, maybe reading something to help with behavior. And we would talk about the character in the book and why this character should or shouldn't do something. And then sometimes we would just play. And he looked forward to me coming and just needed that time to himself. Time out of the classroom with that special someone, and nobody else got that. And I think he really thought that was pretty special. In the classroom, I was just shown that I really, we really need mentors and more of them. We need somebody there for some of those children, because it seems like, especially the last few years that I taught, there are more and more children, and as we had talked, more and more children that are lacking a wholesome family life with adults that are present all the time. And if these children can just have a few minutes of someone's time on a regular basis, that's really what they need.
If you have an extra 30 minutes a week, there's a student in Barrow County that needs you.
I'm Paul Thornton. I teach music technology, guitar, and piano at Barrow Arts and Sciences Academy. So music technology is basically music production, recording studio things. We do anything from composing music electronically, live recording in the studio. So in this lab we have 24 stations. Each station is equipped with a computer, a MIDI controller where they can do their editing and composing in this lab. Currently the lab is used for piano and guitar. I don't teach music technology in the spring, but in the fall I did. And then here we've got our recording studio. We're getting a new building here at BCSS, so in that building I'll have a full, proper recording studio. We have created a recording studio here in the Sims Academy. So I've got the studio here that's set up for podcasting. We have a few student groups that are doing some podcasting, so they do that in here. But this is also where my music technology does singing, guitar playing, drums, full band things. And then here's our control room right here, which is where the students listen to it, record, make adjustments and things like that. And then afterwards they'll go back and edit those for a final product. Planning is typically on the weekends for me. If we're talking specifics, I would say Sunday afternoon and Sunday night is when I am just doing research for whatever I want to present to them that week. This semester I teach a guitar class and piano class, so we're studying different guitar players, famous guitarists, same thing with piano. Right now we're going through historical time periods with piano, so there's a lot of research on my part that's being done, and then how I'm going to present that to the students. I think you have to be patient, and that's something that I think every teacher will tell you. When you come to work, you can't necessarily control what's going to happen that day. There's a lot of variables with students, and they're all coming from different backgrounds, and I think you have to be patient with them and take them wherever they are. And then the other thing I think you need as a teacher is the ability to forgive yourself, because we make mistakes as well, and sometimes your mistakes may affect your students or your coworkers. You have to move past that because nobody's perfect. We're listeners, and the biggest thing is we're here to facilitate. We don't control what they do. We just help them kind of discover who they are and what they want to be later on in life. And if we can do that, then I think we've done our job.
My name is Jaden Cooper. I'm a senior and I go to Winder High School. So growing up, I was just always outside. You know, I like to do a lot of fishing. You can tell by my attire. So when I got to high school, I like to choose the classes that I like to do. So I chose agriculture to be one of my pathways. And basically, I'm getting to do exactly what I wanted to do as a kid, so it's pretty fun. So football teaches you a lot of valuable skills like communication, accountability, and basically just trusting your teammates, because in the classroom and in the workforce, you have to work with people that you don't necessarily like half the time, and you just have to deal with it, and you just have to do stuff like that to become successful. A teacher that's made an impression on me the most would have to be Miss McCall. She teaches business here, and she teaches you about credit, which is a really good thing to know in life. Obviously, I just won prom king, so I'm pretty proud of that, and I'm also proud of being an honor grad because all my hard work's paid off. I'm planning to go to Georgia Southern to play a little football and also to pursue a career in environmental engineering. Do your work on time, don't show up to class late, hang out with the right crowd, and never procrastinate.
My name is Eli Sauls, and I'm a senior at Winder High School. So I grew up in Winder. I went to Bramlett, and then I went to Russell. In 8th grade, I got started in FFA, and I really didn't get big into it until I got into high school last year. But FFA has completely changed my life and has opened many different opportunities, and I've been able to meet people from all over the state and all over the nation. It's been a fantastic experience. My experience in FFA has shaped who I am because being treasurer of our chapter, I learned that I had to respect everyone no matter who or what they look like, who they are, and it's just taught me to be a good human, be respectful.
Now reconvene and return to regular session. Could I have a motion to approve the personnel report as amended?
So moved, Ms. Kelly.
Motion by Ms. Kelly, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Callaway. All in favor? All right, and then could I have a motion to approve the second report?
So moved, Ms. Kelly.
Second, Ms. Hendricks. Motion by Ms. Kelly, second by Ms. Hendricks. All in favor? All right, thank you. We will have our regular board meeting on the 5th. Ms. Kelly, you will have the invocation, and with no other business, we will now adjourn.